Thank you all for coming in this morning on a rainy day, and traffic might have been awful for you. My traffic was better than usual today. I have no idea why. But again, thank you for coming in and welcome. Before I get started, Father Credmore's here this morning. He has to run to something else, but we just wanted to give a brief sort of plug for something here.
Well, I want you to know that you have a chaplain in the school, and that's me. So, we at BC High, we are one community of faith. We even though we're the high school and the Rupe, we share services and resources, and we want to make sure that you know that there are spiritual and pastoral opportunities available for you. So some of you have at your table a list of spiritual opportunities. These range from academic. We do classes in scripture. We do a class in spirituality. The class that I'm going through right now is a class on biospirituality. How to pay attention to your body as you are learning how to pray in a new way. We are not disembodied prayers. Our whole body is in play. So we do a number of things that are at the request of parents. So we can do things at whatever location, in Boston Central, on the South Shore, Metro West, and North Shore, we can accommodate whatever the small group gatherings that you have. We also have some fun things. We have some contemplative photography walks. So we'll take our iPhones and we'll go to Mount Auburn Cemetery, and we'll just try to see things a new way. So some of the things that we do for the students in offering retreats, in offering spiritual programs, in offering whatever suits your pastoral or spiritual needs, you have available for you. So my email is on the page, and please, if you think of something that's set up, it can also be for the sacraments. We have opportunities for the sacrament of reconciliation. We have Where is God in Your Life conversation. So if you want to come in for a singular meeting, great. If you want to come in for 6 meetings, if you want to meet every other week for the whole year, we will accommodate you in some way. And some of these conversations can be, I'm not having the best conversations with my spouse. I need someone to hear me out. Great, that's what we're here for. I can't talk with my teenage children, well, come on and talk. So we do also the spiritual exercises of St. Ignatius of Loyola in whatever format, and that is available for you. So whenever I send out anything, please know that you are included in all of those activities. All right? Bring a friend to these events. You may publicize it as widely. The goal, we want you to know that we care for you. You are sending your sons here. They're learning a lingo. They're learning a whole new vocabulary, a way of thinking. We want to bring you along with that as well. So any ways that we can kind of bridge that gap to keep the two of you closer together, that's what we like.
We will probably have 3 or 4 7th grade parent coffees this year. In November, we're having a Rupe parent coffees for both 7th and 8th graders. Sometimes there are some 7 through 12 parent coffees. And we try to pick a topic that we think will bring some people in. Part of it is really an opportunity for you to meet each other. So even if you're not interested in the topic, feel free to come on in. And I'm going to talk a little bit today. Mr. Horn is going to talk a little bit today. We'll have some time afterwards as well if you have sort of general questions or individual questions. We'll be around for those. So I want to start today. We're going to talk about homework. Before I do that, one of the religion teachers just sent me yesterday an article this month from The Atlantic, and it's titled, "Why is Middle School So Hard for So Many People?" And it's a pretty short article. You can look it up online. It's worth reading. But in the last paragraph, I'm just going to read this to you. It's kind of fun. The middle school movement has experienced somewhat of a resurgence in recent years. For these efforts to be successful, adults will have to embrace the messiness that is middle school. Tweenhood is torturous, and tending to those in the midst of it can be excruciating and embarrassing. tweens will make lots of mistakes, and they'll learn from them and still make more mistakes after that. Yet those mistakes and the growth that follows are precisely what gives middle school its meaning. I love that paragraph. I sent it out to the rest of the faculty. We will at times forget that they make mistakes and they're supposed to make mistakes, and we'll all be frustrated with it at times. But again, it's a good thing to keep in mind ourselves, this is what they do at this age at some point in time here. And I think it's good for us to keep in mind this morning as we talk about homework and organization. I'm going to talk a little about big ideas about homework, and Ms. Hornby will talk more about organization. We're always talking about homework or just work, assignments, etc. in your Group A division. We circulate articles about them, we talk about what's appropriate, what's inappropriate. And just to put some context, you may have heard me say in the past that the beginning of 7th grade is about making our students comfortable. It's about working with that transition, making sure that transition is as smooth as we can get it, helping them to feel comfortable. The homework load these first 6 weeks is not very heavy. And most guys find it manageable and handle it well. And that'll change a little bit. And sometimes we have this parent coffee more like later in October, so we're a little bit earlier this time. I think around the beginning of November is oftentimes when we see some changes. And just going to give you a heads up, the assignments start to become more rigorous, once we sort of have a better sense of where everybody is. So you start to see some uptick in that. As we head into progress reports in mid-November, you're going to see there'll be more assessments because teachers, always have more assessments right before a report card or progress report. So they kind of figure out what things are. They're going to also have, for a lot of guys who've had assessments and maybe haven't done as well, there's going to be the cutoff time for any redos, retakes, things like that. So that's going to create a flurry of activity or a flurry of hiding in the case of some students. And we'll talk more about the retakes and what that means a little later in time. The other thing is the boys get tired as we start to head into that time of year. We've got for the boys, we've got a 4-day week next week and a 4-day week the week after that because we have a professional development day 2 weeks from tomorrow. So that gives them a little bit of rest, but again, they're going to start getting tired. September, they're the freshest they are all year. January is pretty good as well. And then they start to get tired. You'll notice that. The other thing here, this is sort of there's an irony to this, but it does make sense as well. As the fall sports wind down at the end of October into November, the guys have more free time, but sometimes that means they waste more time. When you have no time to waste, you don't waste any time. Like all of a sudden, fall sports start happening, they now have an hour and a half of extra time in their day, so they waste 4 hours. And we just see that. You see it in the high school. When I used to coach college swimming, I saw it with my college swimmers as well. So just kind of these are some of the things you'll see. Just good to be ready for. So it's a good time for us to sort of talk about some of these things. Even though, again, I think for the most part, they're finding everything pretty manageable, pretty smooth right now. So we're, from our side of things, from the teacher side, we're trying to make assignments, and whether that's assignments they're doing a lot of assignments in class, or they're assignments they have to do at home, challenging and meaningful. And I think there are 3 different real purposes for homework. So the first purpose is just practice. And this a lot of times when you see the sort of daily assignments. Math usually has an assignment pretty much every day. In math, oftentimes you're teaching a concept, and at home, and you show some examples, and at home that night they're doing practice with that to see if they really have it. And then they come back. Same, when they're learning vocabulary in a language class or an English class, vocabulary or grammar in a language class or an English class. Again, assignments and practice. You just have to. You don't really know if you know something until you practice and do it a few times. And again, with math, usually the way a math class will work when they introduce a new concept or a slight twist to yesterday's concept. They do an easy problem, they do a little more difficult problem, and they do a more challenging problem after that. So the guys are going to walk them through. And then the homework that night tends to have all 3 of those types of problems. The boys who say, who, do the first three and say, I've got this, and then often don't sort of work it as much as the next one and wonder why it's all of a sudden changed, that's where practice comes in. If they can't get them all right, that's when they really ought to be seeing the teacher. Now sometimes, usually they're going to go over in math class the homework the next day. Which did you have problems with? Yeah, you got one problem you can't figure out, two problems you can't figure out. Probably when they go over in class the next day, it'll start to make sense. When it doesn't make sense, again, that's when they really need to go for extra help. We'll talk about some opportunities for that a little later. Second reason for homework is to prepare for class activities. So that could be doing an assignment to do some research on a topic, to do a reading on a topic, or to read a short story, to annotate a reading, to organize information because they're going to have a discussion, they're going to have a debate, they're going to do or they're going to give a presentation in class. So homework is to prepare for that class activity. And then the third one will be an assessment of their knowledge or skills. So they're writing up a lab report. It's going to, they're going to turn that in. That's going to be assessed. There's going to be a grade on that, and that's, or it could be a paragraph, or it could be a multi-paragraph essay. A lot of times it's a presentation of some sort these days. But again, it's going to be assessed to see, well, from two things. One is their skills, so it's a written piece, and assess certain writing skills, but also their thinking and their understanding of whatever concept is being taught. So again, three sort of purposes for homework. And for the most part, the boys have to complete the homework to learn the concepts. Now, that's not always true. There are some guys who, just by sitting in class, get everything, and they don't need to do the homework. That's rare, or I would say it'd be rare for that to happen every single day. But there are guys that really take things in very well, very quickly, process things. Now, they're going to get challenged eventually. But so part of it is, again, for understanding. The other part of homework is just to sort of build good habits. Good habits of getting things done on time, meeting commitments, because this is essential to lots of things that they're going to do in their lives. And so we try to teach this habit. We say we teach this habit of being organized, of being able to get things done, meeting time commitments. We should teach it. We should assess it. We should try to find ways to get boys to do it. Again, a lot of our guys come in super organized. I ask you to look at their planners, they're fantastic, their binders, their lockers. Those are not the ones that are hanging out with Mrs. Formby during the organization workshop. Although actually sometimes they are the ones hanging out with you in the organization workshop. And we have no idea why they're coming to get more organized, but they love it. And they set great examples for some of the guys who may be more organizationally challenged. A couple of things we try to do for sort of to emphasize the sort of turning things in on time is if a student doesn't do his homework, generally speaking, what the policy is, but again, I'm going to say generally speaking, they get a homework slip. And it gets recorded sometime that day or afternoon, sometimes not till the next morning, so you get there's an automatic email that goes, you sign your homework slip. And the big thing is he has to go to silent study all that afternoon. And he doesn't do, if he's doing a club, he doesn't go to the club. If he's doing a sport, he doesn't go to practice. Try to be a little careful with that sometimes, in the sense of it's not meant to be hugely punitive. If there are 5 football games this fall, and he's going to miss the last one because he missed a minor assignment, teachers often will work with that, because that's not what we're trying to do. What we're just trying to do is get him to have it. This is important. You have to do these things. Now, there are other guys that are just really purposely trying to blow things off, don't want to do it. Sometimes you have to be very good part of that. I think the teachers try to be understanding where the student is when we do that. Hey, it's great to say, always going to get a homework slip, but we're not, because sometimes that doesn't make sense. Homework slip is designed to just kind of help them, get in the habit. But sometimes they have good habits and something came up, and we try to work with that. That's the more forced way. If you don't do your homework, you're not going to be able to do other things you want to do. I think in a broader sense, what we're trying to do, that's the stick. The carrot is, again, on our side, making the assignments something worth doing. Making sure they have a purpose, that they actually help the boys to gain mastery of a concept or to develop important skills. If we're teaching, just as a simple one, division of fractions in class, the math homework should not be something totally unrelated to what that is. That's relevant. But also more than that, so designing homework assignments that connect to the students' lives as best as we can. Because we think they learn more effectively when they do that. A lot of the bigger projects that we do, try to do that, the city project that we're working on in 7th grade, we try to do that in a way that connects them. They feel, this is my part of the city, I am redesigning, and they want to do the assignment because it's personal to them. In religion, they do a lot of reflection pieces. And reflection is trying to take a topic, an idea that they're studying in religion, and help them think about what's the impact on them. Now, we can't make those assignments in a way that's going to connect to 100% of voices. There are voices have different connections to things. We're trying to do that. Yesterday I was in 7th grade social studies class, and they were looking at the big map of the T, the commuter rail, the commuter boat, the whole thing, the whole MBTA system. And as part of this, so starting to get them moving towards on the city project, Mr. Garza was saying, okay, everybody, you've got a chance, you're going to do a research, and I didn't say long enough to do all the details, but a research on some piece of the MBTA. And he said, hey, some of you guys might want to pick the piece that you travel on every day, because you're excited about that, you want to know more about that, you want to know when. And again, maybe a little history of it, a little dig into it, problems on it. Some of you guys might want to just do, hey, maybe you're going to do the commuter boat because you didn't realize that people came to Boston by boat, and that interests you. But again, that sort of idea of giving some choice so that they're connected to it and they want to do it because they're interested. Some creative assignments, the more we get to more creative assignments that for some guys, being creative motivates them. For some guys, that's horrible. Don't give me a creative assignment. Just tell me, give me math problems. That's all I want to do all day. Don't make me try to be creative in some way. For some guys, that's going to help. For other guys, again, sometimes it's the more complex, thought-provoking assignments, the ones that they're going to grip some guys. Again, for other guys, that's going to be, I don't want to think. Don't make me think. Just give me something simple I can do. So again, you're going to see a variety of assignments. Some of them are going to appeal to some boys more than others. We try to get them all to do them. The other thing we need to do is give them clear feedback. Because feedback on how you're doing is the thing that's going to most impact student progress, particularly in learning skills. Learning to write, learning to speak, learning to think critically. The better feedback we can give, the better we're going to do. And that's an ongoing process because, again, not every student hears feedback the same way. Not every student understands feedback the same way. Not every teacher articulates feedback the same way. And so, again, that's a process of ongoing all year. Is finding the best way to give feedback to each student. Some boys I can say something to, it's going to click for the first time I say it. And other times they're going to say, why is he down? And I probably say the same to the boys. It's just going to be very different. It takes a while sometimes to figure out how that happens. So anyways, that's sort of the big picture about homework and about some things we do. Some boys are going to struggle with completing and turning and work on time. Some of that's due to motivation. And again, we work on that, we'll carrot and the stick. Some of it's due to organization. They are totally motivated to get all their work in, and yet somehow they have no ability to do that because of organization. So I'm going to turn this over to Mrs. Hornby, if that's more her specialty than my specialty. Mrs. Hornby is our 7th grade guidance counselor.
Good morning, everyone. See many of you again. I know I spoke at the back to school night, so you remember me. But yes, I do want to spend a little bit of time talking to you about how we support the boys with their organization. And Mr. Hamlet mentioned we do offer organization workshops during the flex period. We try to do that at this point about once a week. So depending on when your student is free, hopefully they can try to pick one of those up a couple times throughout the rest of this semester. to help them get a bit more organized. So I want to show you sort of what we tell them and any tips that we provide so that you can help support some of those at home as well. So kind of the basics that we go through by subject, we talk to them quite a bit about how to keep their physical stuff organized, so their folders and their binders. Many of them will show up to these workshops with things just flying all over the place, and so we may need to just sit with them and spend 5 minutes hole punching things and sticking them in the right slots and making dividers. So some of it is really just the physical piece of it. Others struggle with the system that they have in place, so maybe we need to help them figure out a new one. It's very different this year. They may have come from a school with one teacher all day with a desk, and they had everything right there, and now they're traveling, and now they have different expectations from each teacher, so we're trying to help them figure out what system works best for them. Many teachers have given them suggestions on that, but again, every student is a little bit different. The locker I'll talk a little bit about. We certainly will help students just clean the locker. And that's another thing we tell them. If you can spend 5 minutes maybe every Friday afternoon taking home the 3 extra coats that ended up in there in December, or the 2 lunch bags that are now there, make that space so that when you go to your locker throughout the day, you can find what you need. We deal with time management, talk about strategies, their workspace at home, which again, you can all help with, and then some technology and some apps that might be helpful to them. So again, we try to tell them that, sometimes it's the last thing they want to do is like spend time getting organized. They're in such a rush to get other things done. They just want to do their homework. And I try to say, but if you spend those 5 minutes, again, maybe it's cleaning your locker, maybe it's sorting out your folders, that's going to, in the long run, really save you quite a bit of time throughout your school day. First thing we'll do when they come to a workshop, and it's not mandatory. We try to encourage students that we think need it to attend. But the first thing we'll do is have them sort of really evaluate their habits and think about, where do they struggle? Is it an issue where it's a motivation thing and they're not doing the homework? Is it that they're doing it and losing it or forgetting it? Where is kind of the breakdown? As Mr. Hamlet said, at this point in time, as things start to pick up a little bit in the classroom, I think teachers will notice some of these things. We'll start to identify them. You may see things on Canvas that you have questions about, and so we'll begin to figure out what they need. Again, back to the supplies, we just spend a bit of time figuring out what will work best for them. A couple quick tips. I always see like the kid that comes to a class with one pencil, and it's the same pencil that's been in his pocket all day long, and by the end of the day, it's pretty much broken in half, but he's still using that same pencil, versus the kid that has a pencil bag nice and organized, and he takes it everywhere to every class, and has a highlighter and a pen and anything he needs at his fingertips. So we're trying to work with those guys to figure out, again, what's the best system for each of them. This is something that we do tell them that for many students, what works here in the 7th grade is like a folder system. They certainly don't need a big binder for every class. So much of what they do is electronic now. But what they might need is a binder for math with a lot of loose leaf paper and graph paper. They may need some folders to put in handouts, and sometimes a folder that is going to go back and forth from home every day. The other thing is the paper planner. So we do have some of those. We have BC High planners available that we've given to many 7th graders already this year. So it's not required. Some students do prefer an online app or just using Canvas to document their homework. But honestly, if a student shows up to an organization workshop and I'm pretty sure that they're disorganized, I'm going to recommend they use the paper planner. And they start writing in everything that they have every night to do. And we talk to them about, if you go to class and you think you've done the homework for the evening, and you just don't write anything in the planner, I would say, there's always something to do. If there's 5 minutes that you can go into Canvas and look over the notes from the day, or if it's something that you can review for a few minutes on the train on the way home. So there's really never no homework. You can always write something in. And also, Canvas is great as far as having like the to-do list, but it doesn't take account for maybe writing in your planner, I have to study for that math test tomorrow, or I need to meet with that teacher to get some extra help. So again, writing everything down, something, I think that these students maybe in this generation aren't that as used to, so I think it's helpful for us to model that for them. This is what we might start to see, as I mentioned earlier. And it's nice that we're in the hallways frequently and we see them at their lockers, so I may notice some something like this and say, I think you need to come to that organization workshop tomorrow, and maybe we're just going to spend 10 minutes during the period of you out there in the hallway, pulling things out and figuring out what to do. A lot of guys like a little locker shelf, on the bottom, just one shelf that sort of divides the compartments. They can hang their bag and then have some stuff under the shelf and on top of the shelf. But certainly we can talk about that. All right, so time management, something else that, again, no one is perfect in this area at this point in time in their life, but we're trying to help them just maybe build a couple of good habits that will take them through this year and beyond. So a few things we do talk about, again, making that to-do list, writing things down, not just relying maybe on Canvas. Also using your spare minutes wisely. So we have another activity we do in the workshop where they can sort of analyze their day. So they can tell us, what time do you wake up? What do you do? What's your morning routine? What time are you out the door? How long are you commuting? What does that look like? Are you here early? Are you just sitting in the hallway for 20 minutes? Do you stay after school? Do you have time there? So using those spare minutes wisely and figuring out, if I do have 10 minutes, what would be the best way to use that time? We're in, month 2 of school. We know that they still want to meet each other, and it's very important for them to socialize, maybe when they get here early. But also if they're struggling, maybe they need to spend that time seeking out a teacher for extra help, or reviewing those math notes for the quiz that day. So we'll help them figure out where those minutes are. I will say on that note, I remember a student that often said he did his homework on the train every day, math homework in particular, because he thought he could just get it done very quickly. Well, when he started struggling in math, it was like, maybe that's not the best place for that particular homework, because you're just rushing through it and you're not really understanding the content. So although we tell them to use minutes wisely, I think there's certain times and places for various things. Other things here that we offer and tell them to take advantage of: homework club after school every day. Math and Spanish help during Flex is offered, so sometimes there's a math or Spanish teacher available and they have sort of just an open walk-in extra help session. The organization workshops, the study halls during Flex, which I know they've all been to at this point. They're enjoying study halls because it does feel like free time to them, but again, helping them structure that time and use it effectively is what we'll help them with. We also have junior mentors, which your students would meet in their homeroom, and they were introduced to them at orientation in August or September. But we also have the junior mentors coming over here during Flex period on days 5 and 6 now. So there's a handful, 5 or 6 of the juniors that will come every time, and that's available for students to pop in. A lot of times we sort of invite particular students. If I know someone is struggling in a class or a teacher tells me a particular student could use some help, I'll tell them they really need to go seek out that junior mentor person tutoring. And then of course teachers. I think that's such an important skill that they're trying to learn, how to advocate for themselves. And some of your guys are great at this already, and they'll go right up to a teacher and ask them when is a good time to meet, what can I do. Other students are really struggling with that at the moment, and that's age appropriate. But we'll help them. We can model some of that behavior. Sometimes I'm just practicing with students. What will you say to Mrs. Luciani, your English teacher, when you go up to her desk? How will you ask her for that extra help? Some of them need that. So time management again. Then we talk about their workspace at home. So probably doesn't look all that much like this. I wish my home office looked like that. It may be something a little bit more like this. And so we talk to them about the reality of that and how you can organize your space to then better use your time. You would be surprised how many students admit to if I do all my homework and I do all my studying, laying down in my bed with music on and my phone right next to me, it's really distracting. And they say that. So they're aware of it, they just maybe don't know how to take the next step to make a change and build a better habit. Again, you can help with this, and we do sort of encourage them to find a better space in their bedroom, put that phone away. You certainly don't need it out right next to you where it's dinging and you have alerts going off and it's just a temptation there. And so we talked about all of that. Again, they do admit to the phone being the #1 distraction. A couple tips we give them about technology. Again, Canvas is a great app. Notability they're all using. This is the where they're putting documents in and able to write their worksheets. You've probably seen them with that. A couple other fun ones. Pomodoro is one students were telling us about maybe last year, so it's like a timer, and it helps them when we say kind of make a plan for your studying. If you study for a solid 10 minutes, then take a 1-minute break. And this app will sort of help them structure that. And then just using calendar apps as well, helping them to sort of see beyond, the next day is something at this age I think they need a little bit of assistance with. So helping them plan out, maybe you have a family calendar at home, maybe there's something on the fridge, but helping them see, okay, I have a math test every Friday, I know I have this big project in 2 weeks. They really need help visualizing that. So again, we tell them it's all about forming habits. They say it takes 21 days to make or break a habit. I made a student start using a paper planner at the beginning of the school year, and every day he comes to me and says, has it been 21 days? Has it been 21 days? 21 days. And I'm like, don't worry, we'll see when it just clicks and it starts becoming a habit. And then we always tell them, if they're struggling further, if the organization workshop is not enough to help them kind of get a kickstart on this stuff, please see us one-on-one individually. We can certainly offer more assistance to them. Any questions on some of the topics that we try to go over with students as far as organization? Well, I hope to see many of them at the workshops, because I'm sure organization is important to you. That's why you all attended this morning. So we'll help them get to where they need to be. Thank you. Yeah, go ahead.
You talk to someone who walked here
Yep.
someone better than you?
Yes. That's the other thing, this stuff isn't rocket science, but coming from me can feel a lot different than coming from home. And so sometimes I'm just the barrier to, avoid a battle at home. So if it's something that I can help, just encourage them a little bit further.
I want to touch on just couple last things. One is, I hear at this time of year, particularly from parents, that it seems too easy, or hey, really hasn't had much work at all. And again, some of that is that smooth transition we're working on at this time of year. And some of that is, I will say this, we used to have more homework. And I think and again, thinking about discussing it, etc., we've eliminated a lot of the busy work. And that's a good thing, but it sometimes feels unsettling as a parent that, why doesn't he have more homework? But there is a piece of that, we math teachers sometimes would assign way too many problems. They don't, you got to practice, but you don't need to practice with 100 problems. It wasn't that much. One teacher might. But anyways, but there were certain things where we did more. The other thing is, they spend half their day in their team classes, and they're doing a lot of work in their team classes during the class. So rather than a class which is more teacher-centered, where the teacher's talking the whole time, and then we got to send them home with half an hour homework to process what was happening, there's a lot of processing and going and working and going on in class, and a lot of feedback then happens with the teacher able to check in, and then they can't check in with every student every day, but they get to check in, and a lot of that. They're also doing a lot of group work, which sometimes for parents, group work is a nightmare. But a lot of times when they're doing the team classes, because they have that long chunk of time in the day, the group work happens primarily in class. So you will see, a lot of times in those classes, they may not have as much homework. Doesn't mean they're not doing work, but it's just transferring. It's a little bit different where they're doing the work. The other piece to it, just check my notes here. A lot of them are quite efficient, and they have free flex 4 times a cycle, maybe 3 times a cycle, depending on their music class, and they will use that 40 minutes. Oftentimes I'm in a study hall, and I'll see guys that are just very efficient, getting work done, doing it well, and they can do that. And a lot of times we try to have a discussion when I run a study hall. Okay, what work do you have today? What work makes sense to get done now? Or we talk about a flex break because there's study halls, but then there's other things they could do. There's Model Railroad Club, or there's debate team, or there's other things they could do during that. Well, a lot of times I'm trying to get them to think about is, what do you have when you get home tonight? If you're really busy when you get home, because you have, you got scouts, you got 2 sports practices, whatever it is, then it makes a lot of sense to get homework done. If you have nothing going on at home tonight, and there's nobody to hang out with, except maybe your younger brother who's driving you crazy. Hey, why not do something, why not get involved in one of these activities here, because you can't do that at home. And when you get home, you can do your homework. So some of it's helping them walk through that. Some of them use Flex more for social time, and that's okay. Because again, there's nobody to be social with when they get home. I'm not insulting anybody here. But they may not have that. And for some of them, some guys are very, very social. And if they use Flex for some of their social time, it means their academic time in their afternoon classes is going to be more productive. Because they've gotten some of that social piece out of them. So there's a whole variety. We do have guys that are extreme. I remember guys, I've had as advisees who are just those very efficient students. And when we would sometimes I just put on the board 0 to 30 minutes, 30 to 60, 60 to 90. Check off how much homework you have. And the 0 to 30s, I'd be looking at them, and some of them would be like, yeah, you need to do a lot more homework. But other guys, how come you don't have much homework? Well, if we have 5 minutes at the end of math class and she says we can start doing our homework, I can get most of my homework done in that time. Or a lot of times I'll stay in for break. Some guys have to get outside and run around for afternoon break. Other guys will stay and get their homework done. And some, I'd say, hey, 15 minutes between homeroom and when I go to the cafeteria in the afternoon to get a snack, I'll get 2 assignments done. And some guys are just tremendously efficient. And they do the same thing in the high school. The high school, they'll say 2 to 3 hours of homework. But there are guys that are spectacular students who are so efficient that they're not doing that amount of homework. That's just, again, some guys are really efficient. Some people aren't as efficient. We don't grade them on their efficiency. And so just keep that in mind. The other thing, and Jen mentioned this a little bit, retakes. And again, this is going to come up more as we get into late October, November. So in a lot of the team classes, and some of the other classes, particularly in English, Science, and Social Studies, a lot of the assignments they'll have, and even some of the quizzes, tests, whatever, there'll be an opportunity to retake. And one aspect of that is, when you're offering retakes and redos, you can move the bar much higher. And you set the bar high because you're going to give them multiple shots to get to that bar. And that's the whole point of it. Set the bar high, give them multiple shots, and assume that for most students, it will take more than one shot to hit that bar. Now, there's a learning curve with some students that think, oh, I can retake, so I don't have to do anything the first time. Well, if they only get to hear the first time, they're not getting to hear the second time. And that takes them a little while to sort of get used to. Some will shoot really high the first time, and they'll get there, or they'll get close, and they'll retake it, and some of that. The ones we worry most about are the ones that don't think, when am I retaking? And that's what Jen mentioned. We try to get them, hey, put it in your planner. So, yeah, there's no homework assigned tonight, but you just got a warning on the last assignment, essay you got back, or progressing, and you need to get to the M for mastery. When are you going to do that? And some of those assignments might be meet with the teacher after school, meet with the teacher tomorrow morning, meet with the teacher during Flex. They need to start thinking about that process. The team teachers are going to be talking to the students about this all the time, particularly the 7th graders as they're getting used to it. They're going to talk to them about this. Other teachers that are going to offer retakes will also go through that process. You're not going to be involved in those day-to-day conversations, but it is happening. So, you can always ask, if your son's not doing well on something, ask him about, hey, is there a retake opportunity? If he says, I don't know, either A, he does know, or B, he didn't listen, or he might be just confused. Any of those things. So I wouldn't make any judgment, but just say, okay, how are you going to find out? And he should ask the teacher, and if he says, yeah, there is a retake opportunity, okay, when do you do that? When do you have to have it done by? What are you going to do to get ready for that? Those are the questions that help them to move along the way. Now some parents always say, and again, I think this is becoming more common, so fewer parents than maybe 8 years ago when our science teachers were doing it, 12 years ago when our science teachers were doing it, fewer parents had questions about it. I do think that one of the questions that always comes up is, well, can't they abuse that system? Sure, because they can abuse any system we have. There's no system that is foolproof or stubborn-proof or anything like that. So yes, they can. Again, a lot of students thrive on this because a lot of students do need more than one shot to keep improving. And part of it is that idea of establishing and building that growth mindset. That idea that if you believe that through hard work you can keep getting better at something, that you can learn from your mistakes, then you will get better, and you will face failure and mistakes and challenges with a much better mindset that will help you go through life. That's part of this practice, is trying to build that within them. Some guys have it instantly. Some guys it takes a lot longer to build. Some guys resist the idea of going through. That's why we're in middle school. It's a long process we're in. Again, I would next in November we're going to have a parent meeting to talk about the team grading. So if you've gone into Canvas at all and looked at grades, math and language is very clear. It's numerical. You can see exactly what the grade is. You can figure out why the grade is where it is. You try to go into English, science, or social studies, it's more complicated. So we're going to have some of the team teachers here for the next parent coffee to kind of walk you through some of those things, show you through some of those things, look at it. It's a challenge for parents, and we know that. I think, again, what I would say is they're going to go through that with the students all the time. And they're talking about the students, what does this mean? When you see this, when you get this back, what does it mean? What does that mean you need to do next? And how do you do that next? They're going to do that all the time. You're not going to be there in the daily classes to see that. So it's going to be more frustrating for you than it is for the students. Now, they're going to use your frustration and sort of lack of being in those conversations to their advantage if they can. So just keep that in mind. We'll try to get some clarity there in November and help you out with that. And I think a lot of the teachers usually send out some explanations. They probably went over some of it during back to school night. But we do know that it's not always easy as a parent, so don't feel like there's something wrong with your understanding. It's not always intuitive. Part of that is Canvas does not do the sort of learning mastery. It doesn't show it as nicely as we would like to. There's actually a teacher view, which is much clearer, and somehow parents and students can't see it through that view. We keep working on that and trying to make it better. But anyways, thank you all for coming in this morning. Feel free, Mrs. Hornby and I will be here for a while. Mr. Suter in the back. Mr. Suter is our instructional technology person. So a lot of times if you have technical questions or you want to have any questions about iPads, anything like that, feel free to go right back to Mr. Suter there. Skip me completely. And again, thank you all for coming in. Feel free to hang out, talk to each other, and finish the donuts there.